So good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Grey Matter and Microsoft webinar. My name is Chris Wheeler. I'm the Microsoft Cloud Engagement Manager at Grey Matter. Also beside me, we also have Mark Deakin, who has the role of Technical Strategist at Microsoft. So welcome once again. The reason for this webinar is to give you a really great insight into the newest offering from Microsoft, which is the Enterprise Mobility Suite. So with the Enterprise Mobility Suite, this is a really great add-on to either existing cloud service users or anybody that still has on-premise infrastructure as well. I usually go to introduce Grey Matter a little bit more in detail. So we've been in business since about 1983. We really pride ourselves on providing license advice in any sort of sector, whether that's education, commercial, government, different sort of roles such as development, infrastructure and cloud services. So we've taken really great strides in staying up to date and providing expert advice around anything and everything really in regards to software. So if anybody's looking at anything besides Microsoft, I mean, Microsoft is the main topic of this webinar, but if there's any other projects that you're working on, here's a list of all of our main publishers that we deal with, and we've got really great partner statuses and contacts within these different businesses. So I just wanted to let you know where we are currently with the term mobility in terms of personal devices, software as a service, and typically any employees that work away from their desk. So I think the main highlight is the 66% of personal devices for work purposes. That's a key sort of bits of discussion when you are looking at making sure that your users are productive and making sure that they've got all the tools available for them. So personal devices is key in terms of mobility. However, we are seeing a load of customers looking at providing their own devices, corporately owned devices. So it'd be interesting to see with the percentage on there. Software as a service is growing massively over the last couple of years, so we're seeing a massive increase of spending, and that's the prediction by 2017, roughly about 18% of all software spending. And typically roughly about a third of employees that will work away from their desks will be doing so. But I first wanted to just kind of go through the term mobility and how you define it. How what is mobility in the sense? So it really depends on it's a factor of either devices or even location, and I feel it's a little bit of both really. So whether you're out the office, but mainly it's the devices that you work on. So things like mobile phones, for example, the clues in the name. So being mobile, being able to work on those machines. You've also got tablets and laptops. These are the key devices that you'll use when you are out the office. But what about desktops? Would you consider a desktop to be part of the mobility? And the answer is yes. So how I see mobility is, even if you are working from one location to the other, please do not forget the foundation where your desk sits, where the foundations of where you work in the first place. So you could work out the office and use your tablets, your mobiles, your laptops, but even when you come back to being at your desktop, that is still being mobile. So it's important for me to tell you that when you are looking at Enterprise Mobility Suite, it's not just a mobile outdoor solution. It still provides the same level of identity and security even when you are working at your desk. So it's pretty important for me just to say this in the first place. But I mean, mainly it is these outdoor devices that are driving change. So what we're seeing typically is users are now using different devices to do all of their work with. And these devices could be of different brands, different operating systems, for example, iOS or Windows Phone typically, and Android. And all these different devices are using various different applications. And because these applications are now more or less cloud hosted, or possibly they deliver data that is maybe stored in the cloud or on premise, there's a lot of different locations in which these applications can grab data. So that's the sort of change that we're seeing at the moment compared to about 5 to 10 years ago. And for the IT, it's a challenge. It's a question in which, you know, my users are really productive. They've got all the tools that they need, but how do I maintain control of that? So there's typically three components in which they look at when they're looking at this this change. So the first one is to look at identity, how these users are you know, accessing these devices using what accounts. And then with the identity, you know, how do those people access those applications? Do they use different passwords, different email addresses, for example? And then typically those applications themselves, how do you manage those apps? How do you make sure they are using the correct applications and doing what they need to do on those? And most importantly, how do you protect this data? As I mentioned, the data can be stored in cloud, they can be stored on premises, and it's really key to look at, you know, what data users are allowed to look at, what they're allowed to do with that data as well. So I'm going to be really honest. This is something that we've myself have been talking to loads of different customers about in regards to moving data to the cloud in the first place. How do I know that my data is safe, and how do I know that nobody else is going to access that? So that's really key. So in regards to the Enterprise Mobility Suite, Microsoft really do address this, and it's a key part of the Enterprise Mobility Suite. So what they've done is they've allocated this into three separate offerings, and similar to Office 365, this creates a package that is an all-in-one solution, and like I said before, it really does complement Office 365 in a great way. So the first thing is Unified Identity. This is done through something called Azure Active Directory Premium. So it does unify everybody in regards to a true single sign-on experience. One account, one password, and this is really great in regards to if you are utilizing different cloud services, and it doesn't even have to be Microsoft services. It could be competitors such as Salesforce, even Google Docs, for example, as well. So it's really great just to have a really great tool that keeps you organized. And in regards to having one account and one password, another thing that we're seeing at the moment is there's a lot of requests for password resets. So this really does ease the pressure off of the IT in regards to going on to the admin consoles and having to reset everyone's passwords. So there's something called a self-service feature within the Azure Active Directory, and this is really great for the users themselves. But through this, the IT can still manage your the end users as well. And so that's mostly everything that would be within the Active Directory Premium. Moving on, we've got the management of the apps and devices. So this will be all underneath Microsoft Intune. So this is really great for mobile device management and application management, controlling what users can do with those applications and sort of ring fencing those corporate applications, making sure that you know, the corporate information stays where it should be. Nobody can do anything with that and store in, you know, personal storage, for example. And if anything was to happen, like a device or a laptop gets lost, or is, you know, even worse, is stolen, you're able to remove those applications and remove that data using Intune through selective wipe. And if anybody does leave the company, for example, they will still need access to their personal applications and their personal data. So Intune is really great in regards to just removing the corporate sensitive information on there. And last but not least, we've also got the Azure Rights Management. This is really key in regards to protecting your data. So it works really well with encryption, identity, and you can still create policies in place to secure your data. You can control what people can and can't do with certain bits of information, for example. Things like emails, you can control, you know, copy, paste, printing, for example, across the phones, tablets, and your PCs as well. So this pretty much makes up the Enterprise Mobility Suite. There is also another service that Microsoft have chucked in, which is called the Advanced Threat Analytics. And in a nutshell, the Advanced Threat Analytics is to do with security. However, It monitors the environment, whether that's on premise or in the cloud, and it looks at user behavior, it looks at locations, and any known threats that are currently out there at the moment. So things like behavioral analytics, and this uncovers suspicious activities. So what it does is if anybody is signing in through a weird location, for example, or anywhere that they shouldn't be, or if there's multiple attempts at signing in and being locked out, for example, the advanced threat analytics will pick this up and it will notify the administrator of this. So it may need to be looked at, for example. Malicious attack detection. This is what most security vendors will do in the first place, is detect any sort of attack that's being present at the moment. But what it will also do is it will monitor the environment and let you know for any known security issues and risks at the moment. So if anything needs to be addressed previous to any sort of attack. But how I like to describe it is that most security vendors will only let you know when attack is happening. With the advanced threat analytics, it's sort of like a pre-warning. So refraining from swearing, it will let you know if anything happens before something hits the fan. So it's really great. So it's bundled into the Enterprise Mobility Suite, and it really does a good job of making sure that your users are safe and your information is safe as well. I've also popped in some more information around this if you do want to look into this a little bit more, besides this webinar. Just a few bits of information on the TechNet websites and the Microsoft websites there for you. I should have mentioned at the start of the webinar, this is recorded as well, and we will be sending out all of these slides to anybody who is on this webinar in the first place, but also through anybody that has missed this and would like these slides available to hand. So I think that's pretty much summed up the Enterprise Mobility Suite. So the reason for my introduction was just to introduce it from a basic perspective. So I hope this has been really helpful in just rounding it up generally. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass you across to Mark Deakin, who's going to take you through each offering a little bit more in depth. And at the end of this, we'll be having a question Q&A. So for anybody who's got any questions at the end of this, then feel free to pop across. But my contact details will be on the end of the slides as well. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to get in contact. So I'll place you in the capable hands of Mark, and yeah, look forward to speaking to you very soon.
Thank you very much. So what I wanted to do is go through and actually show you how Enterprise Mobility Suite kind of comes alive, so you can see some examples of what it is. As Chris mentioned, there's three elements to it. So Azure Active Directory Premium, Intune, and also the last one is Azure RMS, so Rights Management Services. The place that we tend to see these, or I see these three, and the main areas that people tend to focus on and their reason for buying them. For Azure Active Directory Premium, as mentioned, it's self-service password reset. So at a certain point for any organization, you have too many people to be able to have someone in IT reset their passwords for them. But perhaps the example where I see it a lot more is the single sign-on. So the single sign-on, being able to log into a Twitter account that the marketing team share, is kind of great to be able to do that. And actually, when someone leaves marketing, then they don't take the Twitter username and password with them. That's actually kind of stored by the system, and therefore they never need to know what it is, and it's not a problem. You don't have to go and reset any of the passwords. Intune in particular is used where somebody has a MDM platform or a mobile device management platform that they're looking to deploy. I would say the biggest difference between Intune and some of the others is, i.e. the competitors, is here we're looking at a per user, not per device licensing. So it doesn't matter how many devices you have to your name. It's really based around the fact that you're going to pay for you rather than the number of devices that you have. The second kind of area is actually when people want to use an MDM platform, are usually afraid of using it, or don't want to use it because it's normally kind of like a suboptimal experience. It's not a great experience for the end user. So the important thing we've done here is, rather than containerize and create a separate application to view Word, a separate application to view email, we've actually put we put the smarts inside the actual client. So you still go into the Outlook client on your device, you still go into the mail client on iOS, but instead of having like a bad experience, you're going into one that you kind of recognize and know already. The last thing was rights management services. Where this tends to be used is people will have Office 365, they have OneDrive, and they're afraid that if they use OneDrive, documents will be leaked or left on a machine they shouldn't. It's rights management services where this kind of comes in to fix that particular issue. But actually, I want to kind of show you what this looks like. So we're going to start with Intune first. And so you can see my machine here. And so actually, if I type, it's a similar process on iOS and Android, but on a Windows machine, all you have to do is type MDM, and then you see the mobile device management option appear. And this is the same on Windows 8 as it is Windows 10. And then this box pops up. And actually, this is exactly the same on a Windows 8 and a Windows 10 phone as well. And from here, you have the option to connect to work or school. So we're going to connect to work. And at this point, it means you have, think of it like an almost domain joined machine, but it isn't a domain joined machine. So it's someone's device, their home device, one that you've given them, one that you don't really need to be on the network all the time, on the internal network, but you want it somehow to be controlled and administered and looked after by yourselves. So MDM is and Intune is the route to go for that. So from here, we click on connect, we type in the details, so I'll just copy and paste them in there, and then click on connect. Once you click on connect, in this instance, because we are using synchronization, it's actually going to ask us to log in using the details that are in Azure Active Directory. So we create the login there, give it a second, and then actually what will then happen is you're connected. The policies will come down from Intune. That could be disabling Bluetooth, disabling the camera, disabling USB. It could be more positive things like setting up a wireless profile so that when they come into the office it's already on the guest wireless. Or it could be something as simple as just kind of checking that the antivirus is up to date. There's a whole raft of different kind of settings you can do. The other one that I get asked quite a lot is actually, can you configure the mail settings? And that's something that you're able to do through Intune as well. So from that point, that machine is now kind of administered or under the control of Intune itself. So we close that. The other bit that I wanted to kind of show you was actually something called the company portal. So how do I go and get applications on that device once they're there? So if I type company portal, or portal rather, then what pops up is the company portal. So this looks different depending on the device you have, but the Windows version is pretty similar to this. In fact, this is the Windows version. And as we can see here, I can see all the devices I have and whether they're compliant or not on the right hand side. And on the left hand side I can see a list. I've only got one here of the applications that are available. The important thing here is this is actually here so that you don't need to put your internal application you've created on one of the Google or the Apple or the Windows Store. Instead, you can share it and make it available through this kind of more restricted and safer store where only your employees can gain access to it. It also enables new employees to go and find out all the right applications they need without having to search through a massive store of 5, 6, 7,000 million probably different put a bid on my face applications that they might normally find on a normal store. So actually being able to find those applications really quickly, very important. So from here, I'll click on the expenses application, I'll click on install, and then that will start to send that down to this particular device. I'm going to cancel out of that for now. So we're back to our machine now. And so the next thing that I wanted to kind of talk you through and show you was actually rights management services. So I've opened up Outlook here. Rights management services, actually to demo is really kind of tough, so I'm only going to go up to a certain point. Rights management services is actually very good at stopping people taking screenshots. And so it's quite a tough thing to demo, but I've managed to kind of create one. So the first thing we do is we create a new email, and from the new email I'm going to click on the options button, and from here you can see the permissions button. If I click on that, you now see a list of different policies. So there's do not forward, and there's two kind of confidential ones as well there. So these policies are set and defined by the organisation, so by you, and that decides whether people can forward on an email, whether they can copy, paste, print it. Actually, you can see here, this email can't be even screen printed or forwarded, obviously, to anybody else. So you can send an email full well knowing that no one's going to send it on to a competitor or anywhere, or even just something as simple as sending it to home. And that can be enforced either by the administrator or by the person at the point of sending. We're not going to save that though, so I'll quit out of here. The next thing to show you is the same in Word. So if I load up Word, within here we have a similar kind of process, except now that restriction is based on a document rather than being based on an email. So go up to File at the top left, go to Info, and then from here I can click on the Protect Document option, and again down at the bottom you see Restricted Access, and there's the same set of type of policies available. And now I can restrict it so that this document is confidential only, can't be forwarded, and basically this is a document that's now secured. So I could share something with Chris, for example, and then at the point he no longer works for grey matter, he won't have access to that document. And we use this at Microsoft a lot to kind of keep a lot of our kind of upcoming products secret, by ensuring the documents can only be accessed by A, the right people, and B, even if they are left somewhere, they can't be opened up by a random kind of stranger. Azure RMS also enables you to be actually to see where that document has been and who's tried to open it as well. So even if they don't gain access, you can tell if someone's tried to gain access. Won't save that for now, we're just going to close that. So the last thing to show you is actually Azure AD or Azure AD Premium. And so in order to do that, we need to go into Internet Explorer here. I'm going to go to myapps.microsoft.com. First thing that pops up is a request to log in. As you can see here, I'm logging on as KTJ on the right hand side. And one of the things you have with Azure AD Premium is you can actually change the screen to be something relating to your organization. So as soon as I tabbed out of that, it actually brings up the Contoso demo branding and the big kind of windmills on the left hand side. And that way I know I've gone to the kind of right site, and I could maybe have some information relevant to my organization on the left hand side. So I put in my password. And actually, if I go back just to that previous screen, down the bottom there is the ability to say, oh well, I've forgotten my password, what do I do? So this is self-service password reset. If I click on that, what actually appears is this self-service password reset option. I put my email address, I type the information that's there, the kind of bit that checks to make sure I'm not a robot. It would then ask me a few more questions and then enable me to go and reset my own password. We're not going to do that for now, we're just going to go back. But that is self-service password resets. Not the most exciting thing to show, but actually is a kind of tool to save your IT staff a lot of time and a lot of pain resetting people's passwords all the time. Well worth investing in. So from here, I'm going to put in my password, and actually what I get presented with from myapps.microsoft.com is my single sign-in page. Single sign-in page here, I've got two Office ones, and I've added and pre-populated for this user already that Twitter account example here. So as an administrator, I've already put in the Twitter username and password elsewhere, so they don't need to know that. And then when they click on Twitter, what it actually does is it logs them into the Twitter website, and they're able to go and do make their posts, do whatever they need to, and then kind of quit back out again to go back to the rest of the work. There is an interesting thing, especially with Twitter, that actually, if you do have a lot of people come in and out of the business, even in marketing, you can set it so the only person that knows the Twitter username and password is your Active Directory Premium itself. Should you need to, you can go onto the website and reset it, but you can get to a point where actually nobody, even anyone in IT, needs to know what the password, because as your Active Directory Premium is kind of updating and changing it itself. We're not going to kind of go any further with this. I'm certainly not going to do a tweet from here. And now we're kind of back to the main screen. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of any of the different kind of elements of Enterprise Mobility Suite. So that included Azure RMS, Rights Management Services, where we're locking down documents and emails so they can't be viewed, copied, pasted, etc. A single sign-on, which I showed you there with self-service password reset, was the last thing. So saving some time with IT, and also ensuring that people don't need multiple usernames and passwords to remember. And then Intune, so there's something as simple as joining and becoming a managed device, being able to send down those settings, and then finally being able to download the OD application as well. And with that, I'm going to hand back over to Chris, who's just going to close, and then we'll kind of take any questions if there are any.
Excellent, thank you very much for that, Mark. That was really helpful. So I hope this has been a really great a learning experience for everyone on this. Just to go through the different service options and plans that are there. I should mention that each of these plans are offered separately, so if there is literally just one of these services that you're looking into, then this is available separately. However, when you are looking at two maybe, then it's more cost effective to look at purchasing the whole plan, but you'll get an extra service in there to have a look into. So if you are looking at two or more, then definitely go with the full package. Similar to Office 365, if you're looking at more than two, then it's more it's more sense to look at a bundled solution. But please find my contact details, which are here, and more than happy to just have a quick Q&A. I won't keep you for too long. I know it's mid-December and everyone's got a lot to do before the Christmas holidays, so I'll just spend a couple of minutes just to sit by and see if there's any questions that we can answer.